All right. Well, with that, I see a good chunk of folks have joined, so let's go ahead and get started. So just a few things to keep in mind. This webinar will be recorded, and we will share the recording alongside the slides after the webinar is over. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Alice, if you can progress to the next slide, please. So we have a wonderful line of speakers for today, starting out with myself. So I'm Carolyn Bido, and I am a policy associate at the Electrification Coalition. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the electric school buses rolling out in Michigan. But the nitty-gritty of all of this, we're all here to learn more about the Michigan Clean Energy Bus Grant Program, round 2. And for that, we have Kendra White, who is the coalition coordinator for the Michigan Air, Michigan Health, and It's Electric, which is Michigan's Electric School Bus Coalition. She's also currently practicing as a critical care registered nurse with 20+ years of experience, but she will be walking us through the Michigan Clean Bus Energy Grant Program and things to know for round 2 and updates since round 1. Then we have Jeff Myrom, who is the Director of Transportation for Electrification Programs at Consumers Energy. And he will be bringing all of the helpful insights into best practices and considerations around deploying electric school buses from the utility perspective. We will also have Superintendent Seeley from Pellston Public Schools sharing the electric school bus journey for that school district, important key outcomes and challenges around electric school bus deployment. And last but not least, we will hear from Alice Quack, who is the State Policy Research Analyst for the World Resources Institute, or as many of us know it, WRI. But she will be sharing resources and tools that can assist all of those interested in learning or transitioning their buses to electric. So as questions arise, folks, please don't be shy. Drop those in the Q&A, and we will ensure to answer each of those questions, but we will also allow time at the end of the webinar to further discuss these questions. So with that, let's dive in. Next slide, please, Alice. All right, so many of you may be familiar with the Electrification Coalition, but for those of you who aren't familiar, the Electrification Coalition, or EC for short, is a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that develops and implements a broad set of strategies to help facilitate the widespread adoption of electric vehicles with the goal of overcoming economic, public health, and national security challenges that stem from America's dependence on oil. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk electric school buses in Michigan. That is what we are here for. So I know many of you may have first started to learn about electric school buses since the opening of the EPA Clean School Bus Program. And I mean, we've seen most of the buzz around these buses stem from this program. However, electric school buses do date back to 2017 in Michigan. And it all started with the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, that opened the Fuel Transportation Program, which was funded by the Michigan Volkswagen Mitigation Trust Fund. So 7 districts jointly applied for 17 electric school buses for this program through the Michigan Association of Pupil Transportation for their electric school bus pilot project. And then fast forward to 2019, the pilot project was awarded $4.2 million for all 7 school districts, and electric school buses eventually started rolling out in all of these 7 school districts, including Ann Arbor, Gaylord, Kalamazoo, Oxford, Roseville, Three Rivers, and Zeeland Public Schools. And then fast forwarding to 2020, the It's Electric Coalition began to organize and advocate heavily for federal and state funding to increase clean school bus deployment throughout Michigan schools. And they did this while campaigning to educate on the health and public benefits of these buses. Next slide, please. So then in 2022, we saw the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and with that came the establishment of the EPA Clean School Bus Program. And with this program, we've seen multiple rounds of funding in Michigan, starting out with the 2022 rebate, where 25 Michigan school districts received $54 million in funding for 138 electric school buses. For this rebate round, Michigan was second nationally in number of school districts awarded, in addition to being 4th nationally for total funding. For the 2023 grant round, Michigan received $5.93 million for 15 electric school buses for 3 school districts, But this comes in addition to the third-party grantees, where we saw 10 electric school buses for Flint, 5 in Redford Union, 2 in Mason County, Brimley, and the West Shore Educational Service District. For the latest 2023 rebate round, Michigan received $24 million for approximately 100 electric school buses in 27 school districts. So now moving fast forward to 2023, we saw the passage of the Michigan Senate Bill 63, which established the Michigan Clean School Bus Grant. And this comes as part of Governor Whitmer's bipartisan fiscal year 2024 state budget. And this included $125 million to help school districts transition to clean school buses, prioritizing the most underserved school districts first. So very similar to the EPA Clean School Bus Program. And then this past May, round 1 of the Michigan Clean Bus Energy Grant Program opens. And shortly after, in July, the Michigan Department of Education awarded $30 million for 114 electric school buses in 29 school districts. And then last month, August, round 2 of the program opened, and it is set to close on October 12th. Next slide, please. So this wonderful map you see here was created by the Environmental Land Policy Center. So shout out to the amazing electric school bus team there. But this map showcases where all of the electric school buses awarded to date are concentrated in throughout Michigan. So you can see that awards have been dispersed all the way from Southeast Michigan to the Upper Peninsula. However, this map does not showcase the latest awards for the Michigan Clean Bus Energy Grant Program, but we do hope to update that soon. So it's clear with this that Michigan is very excited about electric school buses. I mean, we started with 17 and now we're at over 300 electric school buses. Next slide, please. But it is important to note that none of this would have been possible if it weren't for all the state agencies, advocates, and stakeholders who have come together to uplift electric school buses as a means to provide a cleaner future for Michigan students and all of its surrounding communities. Next slide, please. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kendra to walk us through the latest round of the Michigan Clean Bus Energy Grant Program. So take it away, Kendra.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate that very much. Thanks for the history of electric school buses in Michigan. Very good recap of what's been happening. Just to reiterate, my name again is Kendra Wide. I am a registered nurse. I'm also an air quality advocate and have been coordinating It's Electric since we started in 2020. We are a coalition of diverse advocates from several different sectors where we've got organizations that are advocates in public and environmental health, school nurses, parents, utility partners, clean transportation, and people transportation. And we all have the goal of transforming student transportation to a cleaner and healthier ride for our kids while saving schools money and decreasing air and climate pollution along the way. So let's talk about the Clean Bus Energy Grant. So I wanted to share with you the funding opportunity that's currently open from the state. To reiterate, in July of 2023, Governor Whitmer's bipartisan fiscal year 2024 state budget included $125 million to help school systems transition to clean buses. There was a focus on communities that need them the most. That budget allocation became the 74B Clean Bus Energy Grant administered by the Michigan Department of Education in collaboration with EGLE. Today in the audience, we have with us Troy Hansbarger from MDE and Katrina Morris from the Michigan Association of Pupil Transportation, who are both here to answer questions about the program as I give an overview of key details for round 2. So to reiterate, the aim of the program is to reduce diesel emissions, improve air quality and public health, prioritize funding for environmental justice communities across Michigan, and to incentivize the utilization of technologies that have the greatest emissions reductions to meet the state's climate goals. Funds awarded are aimed at covering the incremental costs toward the purchase of newer, cleaner school buses. This includes zero tailpipe emission electric school buses, charging stations and their associated infrastructure, propane and compressed natural gas school buses. Next slide, please. Here's a list of the awardees from round 1 of the program, which, as Carolyn mentioned earlier, it opened in May and closed in mid-July. It was open for 6 weeks. Awards were announced on July 31st. Close to 30 million of the original 125 million was awarded to 29 school districts, either in the form of the purchase of new clean school buses or stacking funds for projects previously awarded through the EPA's Clean School Bus Program. Next slide, please. So the second round of the program, again, is open now through October 12th. It closes at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The application can be found in the Nexus portal with your My Login. All Michigan public school districts are eligible for the following levels of funding at a minimum. 70% of the total cost of an electric school bus, charging station, and infrastructure, or 25% of the total cost of a propane or CNG bus. CNG stands for compressed natural gas. Additional incremental funding based on Justice 40 prioritization can boost funding levels from the minimum up to 90% of the total cost of an electric school bus, charging station, and infrastructure, or 40% of the total cost of a propane or CNG school bus. So this might be a little bit confusing. So we're going to explain the prioritization rationale and show you some graphics to help illustrate this better. The next slide, please. So first off, what is Justice 40? What does this mean? This is a goal that 40% of the overall benefits of certain federal, and in this case, state programs, climate, clean energy, affordable and sustainable housing, and other investments flow to disadvantaged communities that are marginalized by underinvestment and overburdened by pollution. The Clean Bus Energy Grant Program was written to align with these investment goals. Prioritization for funding was calculated with assistance from EGLE's Office of the Environmental Justice Public Advocate. The prioritization criteria are defined as follows. School districts that serve high need and low income areas are defined by the percentage of students living in poverty and those receiving free and reduced lunch. This calculation was made prior to the Universal School Lunch Program. Rural school districts, Bureau of Indian Affairs funded schools, school districts serving children residing on tribal lands, school districts residing in counties with non-attainment or maintenance designations for a national ambient air quality standard criteria pollutant, school districts interested in purchasing an ADA accessible bus, and those who serve a census tract with a EJ screen score of 75th percentile and higher. Next slide. Thank you. So next, I want to walk you through how the incremental boosts in funding are based on prioritization. So first, on the left, we can see where funding starts at a minimum for all Michigan public school districts for each bus type, in that green box and the two blue boxes. So next, we can see the various funding prioritization categories in the gray box, and the percentage of additional funding if your school district meets any of these criteria. School districts can meet more than one of these criteria to a maximum of funding at the levels listed here by bus type. If your school district meets the prioritization criteria for the My EJ Screen category, it is automatically bumped up to the fullest amount of funding by bus type. And then on the right, each of the funding prioritization categories is defined in greater detail. And I know this is a lot of information to take in a short amount of time, so we'll be certain to share this recording and then also these slides with you. Next slide, please. Some may ask why the My EJ Screen score receives such a high prioritization. So I wanted to show you the multitude of factors that are calculated into a My EJ Screen score. And you can see why prioritizing districts that serve census tracts with high scores helps to get cleaner buses to the communities that need them most. And that is why the My EJ Screen score alone can determine the highest amount of funding available. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at some graphics that depict examples of different funding scenarios. So I just want to walk with you through a couple of these so you can understand what percentage of the school districts are responsible for given their prioritization status. So on the left, you can see the first example. This school district at a baseline gets 70% of funding. They may also be SAFE eligible, meaning they'll get an additional 5%. They may also be a rural district, so they'll get an additional 5%. They could also serve a tribal area, giving them an additional 5%. And then also they may be interested in an ADA accessible bus. So the amount of funding that's left for the school district to cover would be 10%. In the second scenario, the next bar over, the baseline amount of funding is 70% coming from the state. They are SAFE eligible and are defined as a rural district. So the school district would be eligible for the remaining 20% of the cost of the project. This is regarding electric school buses. Then say we have a high MyEJ screen score. That school district is only eligible for 10% of the remaining costs of the project, is required to cover that cost. They would be eligible for 90% of the cost of the project from the state. In the next example over, you can see baseline funding is at 70%. They're not prioritized any further beyond wanting an ADA accessible bus, so they get an additional 5% in funding. The school district will be responsible for the remaining 25% of the project. And then in the last scenario, they're non-prioritized in any other way other than being a public school district and applicable for the program. They're not interested in an ADA accessible bus, so they would be responsible for the remaining 30% of the program. And then this graphic on the right shows you the levels of prioritization at baseline by bus type and the maximum amount of funding by bus type and prioritization status. Again, we will be sure to share these with you. Next slide, please. The intention of the program is to have older polluting diesel buses off the roads and replaced with newer, cleaner school buses. Therefore, diesel buses engine model year 2010 and older are required to be scrapped according to the program guidelines, and newer diesel buses engine model year 2011 and newer are eligible to also be scrapped, but in addition can be sold, auctioned, or donated. The program guidelines state that the buses must be owned by the school district for 24 months prior to the date of application, and that they must be in operational condition per state inspection. In other words, they are green tagged for operation. This is different from round one of the program, which had requirements on mileage and fuel consumption. MDE received feedback from school districts that the mileage and the fuel requirements were difficult to meet, and this change is in direct response to that feedback. So the intention of the ownership requirement of 24 months is that the awarded newer and cleaner school buses are removing pollution from the same geographic location as the older diesel buses were in operation. We'll talk about this more in a moment, what to do if you're not able to meet the geographic location requirements as stated here. Next slide, please. School districts can request a minimum of 1 bus and a maximum of 10 buses or 50% of their fleet, whichever is fewer. The new bus or buses are expected to be the same type, vehicle gross weight, ownership, and to serve the same geographic location as the replacement bus or buses. Please keep in mind that MDE wants this program to work for your school district and situation. So if any of these requirements are not met, please email them to have a further discussion. Keep in mind that the aim of this program is to improve air quality by replacing the oldest, dirtiest buses from the communities most deeply impacted by environmental justice. MDE wants to work with you to get your school district newer, cleaner buses for your students and communities. Next slide, please. Let's discuss what's covered. If you're interested in purchasing an electric school bus with your award, the funding will help to cover the incremental costs for the bus, charging station, and infrastructure. If you're interested in purchasing a propane or CNG bus, the incremental costs will cover the purchase of the bus solely. Eligible electrical infrastructure costs are illustrated here and include those from the electrical panel to the bus. Electrical infrastructure upgrades from the pole to the panel are not included. Please have detailed discussions with your utility provider so that you fully understand the scope and cost of the project. Funding is awarded up front after all required documentation has been submitted and the project has been approved by MDE. Costs incurred from the grant administration and vehicle disabling are not eligible for reimbursement. Next slide, please. As part of the application process, these two forms need to be uploaded and submitted with your application. We want school boards and utility providers to be well aware of this project. We don't want awards being rejected because these entities were not involved from the start. So speaking with your utility provider early, as I'm sure Jeff will highlight, will be essential if you are intending to apply for an electric school bus. Next slide, please. These next two forms are to be submitted after the award is made. The scrappage requirement form is pretty straightforward, and it's required upon scrappage of the replacement bus, which ideally should take place within 24 months of the award announcement. The service level agreement can be submitted once a school district picks their bus or indoor charging station manufacturer to discuss expectations for service. New buses and new technology of all types have the potential for downtime, and we want to be sure there is a service level agreement in place to protect schools to minimize interruptions to student transportation. This form is intended for school districts to engage in conversations with manufacturers on expectations for service and for training. Next slide. Okay. To recap, the program is open now until October 12th at 8 p.m. The grant application is accessible through the Nexus system via your My Login portal. Please be prepared to submit the school board and utility awareness forms with your application, as well as a competitive bid proposal from the MSBO. The scrappage and service level agreement forms can be submitted after the award is made. Applications will be reviewed in October and likely announced shortly thereafter, with payments expected in November of 2024. Last slide, please. So in conclusion, please note that this application process is very straightforward and simple. Funds are stackable with federal dollars and utility programs. If you received an EPA Clean School Bus Program award and have remaining costs for your electric school bus charging station or infrastructure for your project, we certainly encourage you to apply. Please check the prioritization checklist to see how much funding your school district is eligible to receive. Clean school buses bring a quieter, cleaner, and healthier ride to our students, to your students, drivers, and mechanics, and to our communities. All kids deserve a clean ride to school, especially those living in our prioritized districts. And next, I just want to highlight the website where the Clean Bus Energy Grant information can be found. It's on MAPT, and we appreciate them hosting this information for everyone. There are lots of resources available to help you with your application. And if we want to scroll down the page here, you can see there's office hours. Yep, right there. Under resources, the link to the program is there. And then there's office hours every Friday from 9:30 to 10:30. Those are hosted by Troy and Katrina, and they can help answer your questions about the grant. There's also the prioritization list there. We have job aids and applicant checklists. And there's also this webinar will be hosted there and any other information you might need. I believe that's all for me. I'm going to put my name and email in the chat as well, so that if others have any questions, they can certainly reach out to me. And I'm going to pass it over. I believe next is Alice for talking about WRI resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Kendra. That was very informational. And of course, as Kendra mentioned earlier, we have other, experts on this program in this meeting right now. So if you have questions, please drop those in the Q&A. And I know that they will be more than happy to answer and provide all the information that you need. So actually, next up, we have Jeff from Consumers Energy, bringing that utility perspective that I mentioned earlier and best practices. So I am going to pass it over to you, Jeff. Take it away.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, I'm Jeff Meyer. I'm the director of our transportation electrification programs here at Consumers Energy. We cover the majority of the Lower Peninsula, though if you're in the greater Detroit area, that would be DTE. And if you're down towards St. Joe's, that would be Indiana, Michigan, as a utility. So double check your electric bill. But if you are in consumers territory, and even if you're not, I think some of this advice will very much apply to you. But if you're in consumers territory, definitely reach out here with the link at the end of this slide deck, and we would be glad to help. So we're working with 13 school districts right now, 10 of whom had already had electric bus awards. So it's clearly a pretty popular program. We've been down this road multiple times, and we can certainly help guide you through what may seem like some pretty confusing information on the utility side, but I'm going to try to really boil it down and simplify it for everyone today. So let's go ahead and hit the next slide. There we go. All right, so this is a very simplified view of the grid, and a question you may get at a public meeting or school board meeting is, can the grid handle electric vehicles? And I am here to say, absolutely. This is really kind of a myth. Michigan's grid is connected throughout a transmission network which spans the entire Midwest. So we can actually pull power from as far as the Dakotas and even Canada across here. And so adding an electric bus or adding an electric vehicle is really a very small ripple in a very large pond. So I would not worry about that at all on the far left side of this grid with utility generation assets. What we're more interested in and what we really want to focus on is the far right here. And when we think about make ready, which really just means how do we make the energized connection ready for your fleet of vehicles, there's a couple things our engineers are going to look at. And one is the number of vehicles that you're getting, either potentially in this award or for your future planning. If you're planning to go 100% electric like Pelston is, love it. We can plan for that, and we can work with you right now on our rebate and our make ready programs. But a really key point here to control cost is the number of vehicles on the far right times or multiplied by the power of the chargers that you are going to install for those vehicles is what dominoes to everything further left. And the more powerful the charger you put in, the more these costs can potentially rise depending on where you're at. So what we will work with you on is how do we optimize that combination so that the make ready costs are as small as possible. Because everything to the right of the meter, that's where you're going to be hiring an electrician who is going to be installing all those upgrades and all the wires to get to those chargers where you park your buses. Everything to the left of the meter is what we are going to upgrade. And occasionally we do have to drop a couple power poles. We might have to do a slight line extension. But again, as we look at your parking lot and where you have these buses or the building in which you park these buses, we might even be able to suggest a slightly different location that is going to be cheaper because if we do have to drop a couple poles or we can avoid that, again, that can really be a really nice cost savings. So that's kind of lesson number one that I really want you to take away with. Early in the program, we did see some schools who got suggestions from vendors to put in a very powerful charger, maybe even a very powerful fast charger, like 200 kilowatt. That is typically what you would see at like a gas station or a Myers, where they are putting in a fast charge for people taking cross-country trips. Those are expensive. A 200 kilowatt fast charger is probably $250,000 just for the charger itself, whereas smaller, potentially level 2 type chargers, which I'll go over in a minute, or a very low powered DC, maybe around 20 to 50 kilowatt, could be much less, maybe tens of thousands of dollars as opposed to that. And that's all things that we've been down through before, and we're happy to help guide you through that. So it's if you do get a quote like that, we're happy to give you a second opinion and help you out there as well. Beyond the make ready, let's go to the next slide, is a really important concept from why the utilities are engaged in this. And everybody uses electricity. It's called a load curve, and that's what these two pictures are in blue here. But generally what society does is we use more electricity when we're awake, and we use very little electricity when we're sleeping. And hopefully everybody is getting, at least 8 hours of sleep, and your buses are probably parked for 8 hours or more overnight as well. And so we want to get that charging load, which is in the green, into that valley. because of the more people who are charging on peak, which is in the middle of the day, especially in summer when there's a lot more air conditioning load, it really increases the odd that we have to do some significant grid upgrades and again, increases costs. But if you get those same kilowatt hours going through that exact same equipment when other power is not being used, potentially there's not even upgrades that are needed. Now, I don't think that will be the case for electric school buses with your attachment, but as for an entire circuit, like let's think through like a residential neighborhood, if everybody got electric vehicles and they were all charging on peak, yes, we'd probably have to go in and potentially rebuild that neighborhood. But if we can get people to charge off peak, not only do we not have the upgrades, but we're getting more kilowatt hours through the exact same equipment. And so, when you look at your utility bill, what is it? It's dollars per kilowatt hour. The dollars are simply the cost of what it takes to make the energy and to get it to your home or your business. So the more kilowatt hours you get through the same infrastructure, it actually brings down rates. And that's a kind of a shocking fact for people who aren't familiar with electric transportation. But this is why utilities are so excited about optimizing the grid with electric vehicles, is it can actually benefit everyone. We heard about the air quality benefits earlier, but think about that. The more we can control our costs, you're actually being a good neighbor and assisting people who don't even drive an EV by getting this grid here. So we hit the next slide, please. This is a picture of our time of use rates. And again, we have a one pager that we can send, and this is also on our website, so don't feel like you have to write down all these details. But you can see during different times of the year, between summer and winter, the rates do change depending on what time of day you're using it. And so we can help you really optimize your costs for fueling your bus by getting on this time of use rate. Again, if your bus is parked, which I'm sure it is, for multiple hours overnight, you are going to be in that green zone. And that is a significant discount compared to diesel. In fact, you're probably going to save at least 50% of your fueling costs compared to diesel by going electric. But if you can avoid the on-peak, especially in the summer, well, that's closer to a 40% discount even on electric. And in the winter time period, which is January through May and October through December, so the majority of the school year, there's a little less differential, but it's still there. And so you can charge on peak. You're not going to blow anything up, I should say that. We're going to design the system so that you are ready to go, regardless of that. But the more you can charge off peak, again, for all the other reasons I said before, the better. And so we even have specialists on our team who can do some estimates of what your electric bill will change to. Because do recognize you will be switching, your diesel bill will decrease, but your electric bill will go up. But we commonly see people save about 50% of their fueling costs, if not more, by going electric. All right, so my next slide. This is probably the more exciting one because now we're talking about money. And I do hope you have that Oprah moment where you get your own car here with this grant program. But our rebate program is not for the bus, it's for the charging infrastructure and how you are going to charge those buses. Undoubtedly, your manufacturer will have a recommendation on which way to go, but these are the parameters in which we can give rebates for these programs. So on the left is called level 2. Level 2 is frankly very similar to what you might have in your home, though for a bus, more powerful. Typically, people in their home will do 7 to 9 kilowatts. But the max of a level 2 charger is about 19 kilowatts. So that's a 100 amp circuit, 80 amp continuous, which is going on. So this is definitely a double breaker in the fuse box, but it's something that the electricians are very familiar with, and it's not going to sound in any way strange. These are lower cost. However, they're also a little bit slower. This is a little more drinking through a straw. But again, this is an area where I really encourage people not to panic and think about like, oh, I need a super fast charger. I need to be ready right away. We're not talking about the fire department or the police department. We're not talking about a 24-hour transit operation in a very large metropolitan area. I'm certain these vehicles will be parked for a significant portion. And even on a level 2, you can get that battery back. And that's not something to be concerned about. And we can also help right size this and do some cross check on the estimates and the amount of time that it will take for your vehicle. This is about $7,500 is the rebate per every 2 ports. And again, if you're thinking about multiple vehicles, not just in this award, but through the future, we can help you prepare for that as well. The vehicles do not have to be in hand for us to get moving on this. So if you're putting in a grant application for 2 buses, but you think in the future you will move up to 4 or 6 or 8, we really want to know that, because on that make ready, on that early grid graph I showed, we want to not come back and essentially redo the make ready work that we did. We want to come out one time, get it prepared, and save everybody money on that side. Some manufacturers will recommend a direct current charger. You can see there's a little bit larger port. The direct current pins are on the bottom because it can put more power in on that side. So it is a thicker cable. It is a thicker connector to the vehicle. Our rebates cover the 20 to 50 kilowatt range. Now, a lot of school buses are at least 100 kilowatt hour battery. So if you think about, I'll just use round numbers. I know some are larger than 100 kilowatt hour battery, but 100, 20 kilowatt, that's 5 hours. That's what we want to do. We want to spread that power out as much as possible. Again, that reduces the make ready costs that are out there. These chargers are more expensive. The higher you go in power, the more expensive it will be. But if you're a larger school district, for example, Jackson Public Schools, which is one of the ones we're working with, which is getting over 20 electric buses, you might want to consider this, or at least consider one, so that you, if you have a more emergent need, like maybe you need to run the volleyball team somewhere, or pick up some kids to a field trip that you weren't expecting for some other reason, you might want to put one of these in. But even the biggest fleets, like Amazon and the folks that we work with, are only putting in about one direct current charger, higher powered direct current charger for about every 25 or more vehicles. The rebate on this is $15,000 per port. And these are all stackable again. So if you get multiple buses and multiple chargers, we can offer a multiplier of these rebates. And my last slide. And I'll put this link in the chat so you have it. We have the Power My Fleet program, which is where you'll want to go and get your information put in so we can reach out to you and begin coordinating with these rebates I was just speaking about. But if you are ever interested in electric vehicles, please click on the link above as well for EVs. We have residential rebates as well, and workplace opportunities too. So thank you for having me today.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jeff. That was so helpful. All right, so our next presentation is from Pellston Public Schools. We have Superintendent Seeley, whom will be sharing their electric school bus journey. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a very cool video that will be shared, but I'll pass it over to Superintendent Seeley so he can introduce himself and then we can get into it. Take it away, Superintendent.
Sounds great. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, Stephen Seeley, Superintendent at Pellston Public Schools. This would be my 6th year as superintendent here, and happy to share our journey, and feel very fortunate to be able to share this story. So we'll let the video roll and then I'll jump in and finish up. My name's Stephen Seeley. I'm the superintendent at Pellston Public Schools. Grew up in beautiful northern Michigan. Pellston is at the very tip of the mitt. We're about 15 miles south of the Mackinac Bridge. Close-knit community. It is what small town America is all about. A very rural northern Michigan area. Most of our routes are on dirt roads. The school is definitely the hub of the community. It's the biggest employer in the community. About 550 kids comprise our student body, and we're preschool through 12th grade. So we have 5 bus routes, and we will have 5 electric vehicles on the road this year. The 3 qualifications were having a Native American population, being rural, and having a high percentage of poverty in your school district. And so Pellston met all 3 of those qualifications. We were on that list. So I, had never even considered an electric school bus. I'd never rode in an electric vehicle in my entire life, but I went, I got to go after this for my school district if there's free money out there that I can get for our students and to offset the budget. The first round that we were awarded from the Environmental Protection Agency, it was fully funded. And so I believe that we're going to get a 5th bus for free and have 0 out of pocket for it. Our diesel buses, they get 6 to 7 miles per gallon on the road. If you equate the energy price of electricity into these new EV buses to price of diesel, the EV buses get 24 miles per the gallon. So over 3 times more fuel efficient than our diesel buses. You know, second saving, we have going to have 5 brand new buses that are under warranty for 2 years. The batteries are under warranty for 8 years. We were putting a lot of money into our aging fleet before we were awarded these buses, and we no longer have that. So we estimated that we were going to save about $50,000 to $60,000 a year. Our drivers report that they love the buses. They handle very well in the northern Michigan weather, ice and snow. The buses get a 120-mile range.
It's on? What?
When you're on a bus that's as quiet as an electric golf cart, if 2 kids have a scuffle in the back of a bus, they hear it right away. If a bad word is said, they hear it right away and can correct it. And also, not only, our job is to educate kids. I have to make sure that when they graduate, they know how to read and write and do math. We need to make sure that they understand how to advocate for themselves, for their health, for their welfare. But I also want to make sure I teach them about the environment. They also might grow up and make sure they have solar arrays on their home and make sure that they're helping out the environment in their way too. So I think that the power of these buses is going to be far more reaching than we'll ever know. Putting clean buses on the road, that's important. When I give my graduation speeches every year, I talk to my students about whether or not they, move to a big city or another state or travel across the world, that they'd be very thankful of where they grew up, because this is heaven. Our streams, our rivers, our lakes, our beaches, our forests. It's just beautiful. It's God's country, and I feel very good about we can do our part at Pellston Public Schools to protect that.
All right, thank you. So they wouldn't let me just mic drop and leave with the video. I wanted to leave it at that, but I got a few more minutes to fill. But more of our story that I'd like to share with you. So try not to repeat anything that was in the video, but to back up, I never would have dreamt 3 years ago that I would be sitting here, having this conversation. As I said in the video, I still haven't ridden in an electric vehicle. Never would have thought I would be here talking about having a 5th electric school bus being built and ordered for Pellston, but I wouldn't change a thing. I think that our district is extremely fortunate. I'm very grateful for the EPA and the partners that we have had support our district, and for the most recent 74B Clean School Bus Grant that we were awarded. But as a superintendent, and I'm sure there's others on here, we're all overworked and don't have enough time on our hands. So when this list rolled around, I attended a webinar that talked about the EPA grant and how Pellston was pre-qualified, and I thought, I don't have time for that. Lots of good things come across my desk, and I just don't have time for it. But I have to compliment and share. I chose to go with Lion Electric for our deployment of our fleet, and they were a tremendous partner in the application process. I would say I might have had 2 hours into being awarded $1.58 million. So I just had to get a few numbers to them and things about our fleet. The same would go for the 74B grant. Lion Electric also helped me complete that in Nexus. It wasn't a hard thing, but they had all the stuff ducks in a row and were able to help me through it. So my end user work to have all this greatness come to my school district was very minimal. So if anybody is thinking about it, I would answer questions and help out, but I'm sure the other bus companies are doing the same, but Lion Electric was wonderful in that. So a little recap of when that video was created. I didn't have all the answers, but we did not utilize the $40,000 rebate tax incentive that I didn't look into any further, because this 5th school bus for Pellston is fully funded. So we were awarded $200,000 from the EPA, and then we were awarded $323,000 from the 74B grant. And so we built a $451,000 bus from Lion Electric that the order was placed a couple of weeks ago, and we'll get delivery this year. I don't have a date yet. Has literally every bell and whistle that could possibly be added on it. So Pellston might have the most expensive school bus in the nation sometime this school year. Another topic I wanted to touch base on is, EV buses are a hot button issue. And, in Northern Michigan, I was a little bit concerned about it, but the financial benefit to our school district was something that overweighed that concern. You know, I can count on one hand how many people have had a concerning conversation with me about it. You know, and I was armed by the EPA and Line Electric for being able to answer them with good answers, and every conversation went really well. I will tell you that I've kept our EPA announcements and stuff like that off Facebook. Like, I've informed our community. There's been a lot of media exposure, but Facebook is just not the place for this. And, you know, there's people from all over the world that love to jump in and trash the program. So other than that, it's not been that hot button of a issue in Pellston, and they really are normal now here. You know, I was asked by a reporter, you know, what this fifth bus meant coming here to the community, and our buses have been on the road for a year and a half. And so adding a fifth one to the fleet is just normal in Pellston. Our buses play ice cream truck music, and they roll through town making that music, and they're normal, and everybody's accepted it and embraced it, and it's gone extremely well. Want to make sure I touch base on their performance in the wintertime. You know, I know I said some of it in the video, but my drivers report they're better in the winter. I hired a new driver last year who drove downstate for 20 plus years, and she was excited to get behind the wheel of an EV bus. And when I had conversations with her, she absolutely loved it, loved everything about it, loves the regenerative braking, loves the power that they have, loves the technology that they have. They have backup cameras in the rear view mirror for my drivers. They have heated seats for my drivers, a lot of creature comforts that are not found on a normal bus. They're 6 inches wider than a normal school bus, and you find that in the aisle, so kids can move up and down the aisle easier. And a funny fact, we are $0 out of pocket for 5 brand new EV school buses, other than $20,000 for new garage doors on our bus garage, because these EV buses are 6 inches wider. The buses would fit in our bus garage, but the drivers had to pull their windows in, which wasn't very practical. And so it's an older bus garage, and that was money well spent upgrading our doors so that they're a little bit wider. You know, you couldn't see it in that video when the bus drove by, but I have a video saved on my phone of our 4 EV buses driving by, and then that 5th one in the video was our diesel bus. And, you know, this is year 25 for me in education, and I rode green school buses when I was in school. And so my entire life I've been around diesel buses, and I never noticed how loud they were. I stood next to them, and it wasn't a big thing. Now my staff at the elementary school, and we stand out and the buses leave in the afternoon. When that one diesel that we still have that we haven't replaced yet rolls by, everybody hates it. We literally kind of cover our ears and go, I can't believe how loud that bus is. I will make mention that through the process, we did have some issues, and, you know, I'll take ownership on some of the issues. Pellston moved too fast. We had a lot of things going on of wanted to be the first school in the nation that received the second round bus delivery for the EPA grant. I think we were beat out by one school system, and at the time there was some talk of the governor coming to visit, and so we really rushed the delivery and rushed the infrastructure being installed. And so there were some steps that were missed. One being that our chargers couldn't talk to the internet, and so they weren't functioning properly. And, you know, that's something that I didn't know, and now I do. You know, and so advice that I would offer to anybody is make a site visit. That's something that I didn't. I moved too quickly. I wish I would have made a site visit to a school that already had implemented this program and asked questions and seen what was going on, and had a little more forethought. But it all worked out. Again, I would do it all over in a heartbeat, but we had to move quickly. The next thing that I would say is, you know, we did have some bumps in the road with the acoustic headliners, and the 4 new buses made too much noise, and, you know, it was tough to diagnose how to solve that problem, and they ended up needing to be shipped back to Joliet, Illinois, where the Lion factory is, and have them be repaired. But another mention I will tell this group is that, you know, the friends you will find if you do get EV buses, the list is long. And Katrina Morris, who I think is on the call, if you need a partner in your corner on anything, that lady is a fierce fighter and will make sure anything goes right. And so, you know, if you do get these EV buses, the EPA wants to see it go well. MDE is going to want to see it go well. Katrina's going to want to see it go well. And so you've got a lot of people in your corner if problems arise, and they will take care of you fiercely if need be. I also want to mention Consumers Energy was absolutely fabulous. It's not because they're on this call, but you know, once I got the award, I thought I made the phone call to Consumers Energy, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I just agreed to this EPA grant, and now am I going to have to tell my board that I need $250,000 in upgraded infrastructure for my bus garage that, I'm going to get in trouble over. And they laughed and said, nope, we've got to power my fleet program. They were spot on, couldn't have been better to work with. They moved quickly because we needed to move quickly, and did everything that we needed, and were wonderful. Just trying to look at my notes. I think the final thing that I would say, two final things would be that, we're trying to plan for the future. Like today, it's pretty amazing in Pellston that as the school year, we'll have 5 brand new buses on our roads, and we only have 5 routes. And so that's great for the budget. But we're also looking to the future of, in 8 years, which is what I expect these buses to be on the roads for. The body of the buses are not metal, and so they won't rust. And we think they're going to last longer. And we got a 8-year warranty on the batteries, but I want to plan for that 8 years from now. It's a wonderful thing to have new fleet, but normally a school is replacing buses incrementally. And so in 8 years, or whatever that number is, we're going to have, a big cliff to come off of. But we're putting the savings from the EV buses and the energy and fuel savings into a pot of money to save for that. And we're also planning to, we're on the system of purchasing a new diesel bus every 2 years. And so we're taking that money and still putting it into a pot. And so in 8 years, I think that whether I'm still here or the next superintendent will be sitting on a nice nest egg to be able to renew our fleet. The hope is that there's still, incentives at that time period, or I believe, and I've been to some conferences, that the cost of electric vehicles and the cost of diesel will, merge and become closer together. I think the last diesel bus that I purchased was $108,000, and as I said in the beginning, this electric vehicle was $451,000. So they're far apart right now, but I think over the years they'll continue to become closer. And then the final question, you go down this path, which I highly suggest and recommend that you do. It has been amazing the number of people that this has also caught the attention of and brought to my district in future partners, and some of the things I can't even talk about, but politicians have been very watchful and reached out and have been in our corner. So next summer we have plans to utilize the Inflation Reduction Act on our roof. I've got to replace our middle school, high school roof, and with the energy savings of a solar array through that program, we can put a solar array on the roof, and it'll have a 6-year payback where it'll pay for itself, and then the extending 24 years will be energy back into our pockets. And we're also looking at some vehicle to grid stuff. These 4 buses that we currently have enough storage on their electric batteries to power my entire school during the summertime. And so we're working on that program to where when the buses are parked, we can run the school system off of our buses in the summer, hooked to the grid, and then charge them at night at a lower rate. Also in the future, once we have that set up, these buses could be used as generators. If the power went out, we wouldn't have to close down school because we could hook the batteries up to the grid. So, that's all big dreams and a couple of years away before I can get that accomplished, but it's in the future and coming. So it's been an incredible program. Feel very fortunate that Pellston has been a part of it and was lucky to be awarded multiple rounds of funding. And I'm able to put that savings back into the classroom, which is the point of it all. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Superintendent Saley. I hope we're feeling all very inspired from this amazing electric school bus journey. So I want to be mindful of time, so I'm going to pass it over to Alice at WRI to share some very useful tools and resources. So take it away, Alice.
All right, thanks everyone. I'm happy to be here, and thank you so much to our previous speakers. Great information. So just to quickly go over some of these tools, WRI hosts a bunch of all of these tools on our website for free. So feel free to peruse at your own time. When the presentation is sent around, the links will be attached to the presentation as well, and it should be in the chat. So I just wanted to highlight a few things. We have our all about pages for total cost of ownership, tax credits, and the Clean School Bus Program. And this just hosts, it just gives you the full rundown of all the topics at hand and what you need to do to prepare for these opportunities. So great resources there. We also have our Power Planner. in the middle of that mix there, we have our power planner, which should be helpful to guide your work with electric utilities on infrastructure planning, kind of tying into what was talked about earlier with our previous speakers. I'd also like to highlight the office hours that WRI hosts, and also the NREL, the National Renewable Energy Lab Fleet Advisory Services. These are opportunities for you to meet with experts on the field one-on-one, just to get your questions and concerns answered. So I've heard that these have been pretty underutilized, so we encourage school districts to definitely reach out. And just really quick, in the remaining time that we have, I just want to give you guys an example of how you could use some of these tools that we host on our website to better inform your decision making. I know there are a lot of questions about total cost of ownership, so I figured it'd be helpful to kind of talk about this here. You can find this on our all about total cost of ownership page listed on the earlier slide. And we see total cost of ownership as the sum of all current and future capital, operating and financing revenues associated with the ownership of an asset. So in this case, the electric school bus and infrastructure. So it's crucial that you have all the information and data to consider when purchasing these new school buses, electric or otherwise. So we have a calculator on this page that you can input your own data into, all the incentive amounts, all of that, and it'll give you an up-to-date TCO number, both for the comparing diesel to electric school buses. And you'll get some kind of graphic like this. And just to break it down a little bit, on the left, you have your diesel burning bus, and then all these different scenarios with the tax credit, the 45W tax credit, which you can get up to $40,000 in that tax credit from the Inflation Reduction Act. You can find more information on that specifically on our All About Tax Credits page found on the previous slide as well. There's also the Clean School Bus Program rebate. This was from the first round. The funding amount has gotten a little bit smaller for this past rebate round, but still it's a sizable amount. So we definitely encourage people to, school districts to apply for the upcoming round whenever that comes out. Then I wanted to really emphasize this last scenario here with the stacked funding. This actually comes from an example at Knox, Missouri. They were able to lower their TCO to $200,000 after stacking various utilities, state and federal programs. One thing to note is the CSPP program is not stackable with other federal programs. However, it is stackable with state programs, which is perfect with this Michigan program, since it is a stackable grant. So with that, oh, and one last slide here. Also want to emphasize that the other tax credit, the 30C tax credit, you can get up to $100,000 for that one. These electric school bus scenarios may be eligible for that tax credit as well. So even more money off that TCO, which is great. But with all that said, the TCO for electric school buses can actually be hundreds of thousands of dollars less than the TCO of a diesel burning bus, especially when considering the lower lifetime cost of a electric bus from lower maintenance costs over time. So when you think about cost savings, electric school buses are definitely paving the way for that. And essentially, districts can save money that they can reinvest into the classroom, all while eliminating harmful tailpipe emissions. So feel free to reach out about any questions you guys have on the resources provided today. Happy to answer them. And I will turn it back to Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Alice. And I know that we are at time, but again, we will make sure to follow up with all of these resources that we spoke about. We'll provide those emails, we'll provide these slides, we'll provide a recording of all of this so folks can revisit. But thank you so much for attending, and I hope everyone was able to take away a lot of learnings from this. And yeah, let's get more electric school buses in Michigan. It's about time. So everyone have a great rest of your day, and we will be following up soon. Take care.